Oh, when your keynote is doing your audio, man, you know you got a great show. Me. Everyone just missed our last session on voice acting. You'll learn to show you everything what not to do. All right, I guess we should get started then. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Greenberg. I'm Executive Director of the GGDA, and most importantly for this session, I am, all together now, not a lawyer. All right, thank you very much. We will be talking a lot of stuff about startup. There will be some legal stuff in this, but I'm not particularly giving legal advice. I'm just talking through my experiences in the process of setting up corporations. So, first of all, how many of you want to be making games? One or two of you. Excellent, excellent. Excellent. So the entire room, for those of you in camera who can't see all the hands up. How many of you are interested in starting your own studio? All right, so a number of you are exploring it, and some of you are very interested. That's great. How many of you have ever started a corporation already? All right, excellent. Two. That's excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. That's the president of the student chapter saying that his corporations don't succeed, so keep that in mind. So we will be talking a good bit on both the why and the how of starting your own corporation. And actually, I guess I should get straight on to that screen. I'm sorry I have these in an appearing way. So yes, this is the main focus of this presentation. Why do you start a company? I'm going to talk a little about who should be part of this company, the how of doing it, and in the end, the most important part, the scoring. Nothing is more important than how well your company scores. So we all know how the scoring system works for game studios and companies in general, right? Well, if you don't, we'll explain that as we move ahead through this presentation. So why should you incorporate a game studio? So this is a symbol for my own holistic design. I have another studio, Hazy Dreams. I've been involved with several others along the lines. Some of these groups are a single person studio. Others have gotten into the double digits of folks working there and have had varying levels of success. So anyone out there have an idea of why you would incorporate a game studio? All right, in the back there. No one else has your name. That is kind of one, but you can copyright a name without incorporating.
So you can be ahead of the direction you want your game to go.
Ahead of?
So you can be in charge of the direction you want your game to go.
Right. The question is being in charge of where you want the game to go instead of listening to other people along the way. Now, if you end up taking over EA, you can kind of do that, but you're still listening to stockholders. So that's a good point. That is a good part of it. Right here. Legal protection, that might be one of them.
Taxes.
And pardon, taxes. We'll get that down to that further on down the line. But protection is actually the number one. And it's not just legal protection, that's the big one. It is also protects you in a number of other ways. So the legal protection is that the corporation basically acts as an individual. If somebody decides they need to sue you, they can either sue you if you don't have a corporation and take everything you own, or they can sue the corporation and take what the corporation owns, but not you. Now, there's some issues here. If you commit fraud, you're still at risk. There's a big thing going on at Fox News right now where the owner, the head guy at Fox is being sued for sexual harassment instead of Fox being sued, which would be the normal way. So there are some exceptions to this. But incorporating protects you in a number of ways. And the financial protection can be a big one. It can also protect your reputation. If there are things going on, things happen because you're working with partners and somebody does something wrong, it's generally the corporation that goes ahead and gets the hit for having, given DMC it shouldn't have given out or created bugs, and not to say your personal reputation. Where if it was Andrew Greenberg's game, then suddenly it's my reputation specifically. So the idea of protection, we often think in terms of legal, but it gives you a lot of protection. What you're basically doing is you're creating a whole new being, a whole new entity that is doing things. And it creates a buffer between you and a lot of other different things. It creates a buffer between you and the courts, creates a buffer between you and people who you owe money, creates a buffer between you and theoretically the fans, which can be good or bad. But it is an entity that's between these and you and can act like a shield on a starship. Another thing that I like about corporations is that they actually give you focus. If you are a contractor, you're often pulled in a lot of different ways in life, and it's very easy to lose the focus on what you're trying to do. On the other hand, corporations generally have a very specific focus. Our focus is getting games made and distributed so we can raise money to make new games and get them distributed, as opposed to I'm making money so I can feed myself, have an apartment, maybe have family, get a car, whatever else. And that focus is why some people have an issue with working at home, some people have issues with working in office, but it's wherever they can best focus on what they're doing. That corporation becomes not just a focus for you to do things, but it becomes the focus through which people can work together to create something. If there's a company in place, there's often a structure in place that tells people how things are done, why they're done, and what finally gets accomplished. So you can start bringing in a team where they share a vision more effectively than just if you have a bunch of friends are sitting in a jam, you try and get something done, and slowly things get forgotten once you're done with the jam itself. A third issue is legitimacy. Saying that I'm working on a game, everybody you know is working on a game. Saying that my company, Holistic Design Incorporated, is working on a game gives more legitimacy to what I'm doing. People say, okay, he has gone through the steps of creating a company. It's not just some guy who's a hobbyist who may or may not ever create something. He's already created the company. One thing's already been created. One of the things we like to joke in the game industry, you'll see that a lot of the positions will require a college degree. Often won't even say what college degree, just as a college degree. Part of the reason they want that is they want to know you can complete something. You took 4 years, you completed something, you got a college degree, you can do something. So the same thing is kind of true for the corporation. You've gone through the basic steps of incorporating. You are serious. You're not just constantly saying for the next 10 years, I'm doing a game and nothing ever happening. At least something's already happened. So there is a level of legitimacy both for yourself and for other people. So when you go out and get other artists, audio folks, whatever, to come in and help you, they're not just helping their buddy, they're helping this company get going. And finally, the next one is one that's of interest to a lot of people, is money and taxes. Now, theoretically, if I'm working on a project without having incorporated, I can go ahead and claim all of these expenses I'm generating, buying new computers, getting a Unity license, etc. These are expenses. I can legitimately mark them off on my Schedule C, but it becomes a lot easier when you incorporate, especially once you have other people involved. It becomes a lot easier to disperse money to handle all these tax issues rather than having 4 individuals handling it. Our financial structure is set up for corporations to do these, not for 10 people to get together and then try and figure out how this all has to be handled. It also makes it easier to bring in money because if I've just published a game through a publisher, they don't have to now cut checks to myself, the artist, the sound person, and anyone else. They're just giving a check to the corporation, which has a bank account under the corporate name at a bank, and just makes the whole process much easier. And when you're on Steam, you're also going to see this. They want it going through one entity. Now, they're not necessarily going to require it to be a corporation, but they're going to want one entity, and then other people can be complaining, hey, why is it you and not me? If it's a corporation, then it's everybody. The final one is one we often don't think about, and especially not while we are in college, but it actually is important, and it's perpetuity. I want my games to live on after I'm no longer involved with them, and a lot of my games are living on without me being involved in them. If they were just me and I stopped, that's it. If they're sitting in a corporation, then there's a structure to bring other people in and keep them going on and on and on and on. And we've seen this where there are now game developers who passed on, but their games can continue going because they're in a corporate structure. More people can enjoy them. There can be sequels, new forms of those games, and so forth. And we never really think about this. It's also important as you age and you realize that you're going to have heirs, people will inherit your things. It's easier to have it in a corporate structure to continue on and generate money for them down the line. This all sums up in one basic sentence. If you're going to make something that's going to generate revenue and you're going to work with other people, you should have a corporation. It gives you a lot of protections and structure that you as an individual will not have. Our country is basically set up around the idea of these corporations when you're in the financial arena. So who should be involved? All too often, it is people just like those two faces right there, which you probably can't see from the back there because the lights, should have had the lights turned off in back. But it's funny because when we start corporations, it is with friends, it's with people we want to work with, and we don't think about the idea of butting heads. But boy, is that going to happen at some point, especially in creative endeavors where the passions can run wild. So I don't know if that helped much, but thank you very much. But so it is important to bring in the right people into a company. It's not always your best friends because surprisingly, you've never worked with those people. You've just had fun with them. And you have no idea what's going to happen when there's an actual situation where getting down and working is involved as opposed to doing headshots all day long. So you want to analyze who should be part of this company. Whoops, how do we go back to that point? Yay, click through. All right, the number one question is often who brings value to your corporation? So obviously there are people who are going to be doing work. One of you is going to be a programmer, 5 of you are going to be programmers, a couple of you are going to be artists. They're all bringing in value. But who's bringing that value that you want to see last for more than a week, for more than a day, for more than even a month or a couple of months? Who brings something of value to the corporation? Because one of the things we're going to talk about later on is that the folks who become part of the corporation own the corporation. They're awarded stock in the corporation. So you see everything about stockholders. In a big company, you can buy a share of stock in Disney, you can buy a share of stock in Warner Brothers, and you become one of the owners in the company. In your studio, that's generally not going to be how it's going to work. You're not going to be on the open market in any case. And the folks who are going to come in are folks who you want to be working with. They're people with whom you know that you want to be having that regular interaction with. And if they're going to bring interaction, it's got to be interaction that is of value to you monetarily, skill-wise, creativity, and so on. So in my mind, this is the most important thing. Who is bringing value to the corporation that I want to see continue on into the future? If someone is just a good concept artist and we only need concept art for a week and they're not doing anything beyond that, but if that concept artist is also adding design ideas and maybe the concept of the game and is kind of the person who's holding the whole game together, then by all means, consider bringing that person to the company and having them be an owner in it with you. Second question, and I do put this under the value, is who gets along? With whom can you get along usually? Everybody is going to butt heads at some point. I'm sure anyone who's been in a dating relationship has maybe had one argument in it the entire time, like over the course of 5 years, maybe one argument. So there will be that argument. Okay, so maybe there are more arguments. It's often like that in business. Because one of the differences with a corporation is that while you might have your own spheres of expertise, I'm a programmer, you're an artist, I'm a designer, you're audio, etc., those overlap like mad. And it's not like at home where maybe the husband's a good cook and the wife brings home the money, and they kind of have little separate spheres. In the office, you have lots of places where your stuff has to work together, interact with, and you can be butting heads when you realize the other person is not doing it as well as you would have got. But you do need to get along with these people usually, and you want to be able to work with them in a stressful environment. That's why I do like game jams. You get a sense right off the bat, is this someone with whom I can work in a stressful situation? Someone who's good when you're doing exams near the end of the semester. Is this person freaking out, or is that someone who's handling things effectively and efficiently? Is this someone who my work methodologies kind of coincide with? Can we get stuff done? I always advise trying to test them out in a stressful situation, which doesn't mean just start yelling at them. But it does mean put yourselves under pressure and see what comes out of it and how you all deal with the situation. Once you've found these people, this is something you can have without a corporation. This is an agreement between people, and this is not a bad idea. And in fact, I strongly encourage you, if you ever do a jam, and you guys and you have a product come out of it, you do a game at a game jam, and you want to put that game up in Steam or wherever, you don't necessarily need to form a corporation, though I advise it, but you need some sort of agreement between the people who made the game. And I'm going to go into a number of specifics here, which will carry over into the incorporating idea. This is not just about how do we split the millions and millions of dollars our game jam game is going to make. That's really a lower level. It's more how much of this is going to go into the beer fund and how much is going to go elsewhere. What is important is who owns what was created. So the name of the game, someone's going to have a copyright for that. Is it going to be one of you or all of you going to share the copyright? Hopefully you want to put that into a corporate entity. Is your programmer going to own the code? Is the group going to own the code? Is the programmer going to make the code and license it to the group, and then that programmer can sell that code elsewhere or use it in future projects? Can that artist use that art outside of the game? Can the audio person use the audio outside of that game? Under what situations can they use that? So and it gets more important when there are two programmers who worked on the same code module. Who has rights to what with that code module? If two of us worked on it, is it mine? Is it yours? Well, how about we can both use it? All right, we'll agree to that. We can both use this, and we can both sell it, or we can both license it in the future, and both incorporate it into future works that we do. And then you have the question of sequels. Who can keep doing things with this? Can all of us do it separately? Do we all have to agree? Is there some sort of vote in place on how we do this? All of these are aspects of the partner agreement. So it is not just about how do we divvy up our hard-earned cash. It is very much about how do we go forward. And the one I always forget, and I shouldn't forget, is who gets to sell the assets on the asset store? Who gets the money when you sell the assets on the asset store as opposed to selling the game itself? All of these should be mapped out, and it's that ownership, in my experience, it leads to far more fights than the money itself. The money will often be, if you're lucky, maybe you'll get a few $1,000s out of it, that's nice. But who owns what is often where the heads will really butt and the nastiness will come about. All right, so that's the discussion on a partner agreement. This is an interesting part about a corporation. So you should have a partnership agreement for the corporate folks as you get on into it, and an understanding of who's going to own what, who's going to do what. And with the corporation, most of these will fall into the corporation. So what about a board? Who knows what a board of directors does at a major public corporation? So we always see these things about the board didn't do its fiduciary duty, and that's why Enron messed up and everybody lost a ton of money. The board of directors doesn't do the day-to-day work. This is not your programmers. These are not your artists. Well, that's not true. At a big corporation, not the people who do the day-to-day work. But they're supposed to oversee everyone and give direction. These are the folks who are saying this company is going in this direction, and we're doing it legally and ethically. We're going in that direction, and we're knocking over liquor stores while we're doing it. So you kind of got your choice between those. For a smaller company, you will often, a startup studio, you'll often make yourselves the board. And this is how I do it at Holistic Design. The members of the studio are the board of directors. We all own the shares. We're all the board of directors. Another good way to do it is to have a board, if not necessarily of directors, of advisors. So you know that you want to be doing a game, perhaps in a science fiction setting, perhaps in a horror setting. What about getting someone who is an expert who will come in and talk to you all a few times a month, take a few hours out of their schedule every so often to talk to you about horror? If you want to you want to start selling T-shirts, you know that you want to have a Kickstarter involved. Can we find someone who knows more about crowdfunding who will sit on our board and just advise us? They won't do the work on it, but they'll advise us along the line. And the reason you do this as a board of directors is this way you bring them all in together in an official capacity to help guide the company where you should go. And you've been saying, okay, we're going to do the next Flappy Birds. And the board of directors says, look, that's not going to make you money. That's not what you really want to do. You keep talking about great sound effects, great programming, great 3D art. Going Flappy Birds route is probably not the way for you. Let's talk about other directions. And they kind of oversee where you're going, but you're still the ground troops who make things happen. So the question, what about a board? That often comes down to, do you know people who you want to be involved in guiding you without being involved in the day-to-day direction or without feeling that their money is tied into it? You can give them stock if you want. That's not necessarily the way it is. Board of directors generally have stock. Board of advisors generally don't. But it's often a good thing if you know people whose advice you want who will help you out in that capacity. And finally, there are these things. A small game studio will not have an on-staff lawyer unless one of the programmers is a lawyer, which has happened at companies. Somebody has to keep the books, but you might very well want someone outside to be doing payroll and all those things. So these people need to be involved with your corporation, but they don't necessarily have to be hired by the company. You can have an outside lawyer in an advisor capacity. They'll also look at your contracts, tell you that partner agreement's bad, and here's how you can do it better. You might have someone in-house who just kind of keeps the books so you know how much you're making, but someone else will handle the taxes as an accountant, will handle the payroll, their payroll services, all those sorts of areas. So you might have these support capacities as part of the game. Maybe your strength is not programming. But while you're using a game engine, you still need some programmer to come in and help a few hours to get you through Blueprint if you're using Unreal, for instance, or help you with the Unity. So you have some outside support in that form. You'll want to list these and make sure that you can afford them and prioritize what you need. A lawyer looking over that partner agreement is a great idea from saving you a lot of headaches later on. So that's why I always put them first. Bookkeeper, when there is money coming in, will save you a lot of hassles on how your accounting's handled as well. All right, and this is probably the part that most of you are interested in, which is the actual how to incorporate. Georgia is a little different. Instead of calling incorporation, instead of having articles of incorporation, we have articles of organization. Same basic idea. Whatever state you live in, there will be online tools to help you with this, and it is so much easier now. I talked about lawyer last for a reason, in that many people will go to a lawyer and say, I want to incorporate, walk me through it, and a lawyer will do it for only a few $1,000s. Yeah, I know, a few $1,000s sounds like a decent amount of money. It can be a bargain if you don't know what you're doing, or if you look at this and you say to heck with it. On the other hand, you can do all these things yourselves for a very nominal fee. So there's a balancing act. If you have complexities to your deal, if there are 10 of you in the partnership agreement, you probably want to go to a lawyer. If there are only a handful of you and you're working well and you've already kind of hashed these things out, well, then you start the process. And the first thing is actually reserving your studio name. So we're going to go to the Georgia Secretary of State website. I know it's an exciting website, far funner than any other website you might ever see. Or maybe not. But this is really how easy it is. You're going to fill in this form, you're going to send it into the Secretary of State's office, and you're going to reserve the name of your company. Now, don't go reserving Sega, because you're not going to get that here. Oh, hey! Smart man.
That's interesting. It worked a few seconds ago. Well,
I tell you, that Secretary of State's website looks better and better every time I look at it.
that's a thing. Hold on. Yep. That's interesting.
I broke it.
Yep, you broke it. Huh. Well.
All right. You in Videoland, go to the Georgia Secretary of State's office, and you too can enjoy the beauty of this website. I didn't do it either. Well, none of you all can see what I'm looking at. It's really easy.
It's so easy.
When technology works, it's easy.
Yeah, you don't even need instructions. It's so easy. Just look at my PowerPoint and your company will magically appear before your eyes. All right. I tell you what, I will have this up here at the end. I'll show you these links and the like. It's asking applicant name, street address, city, state, zip code, email address, phone number. The non-refundable filing fee is $25. It's very difficult. It really is that easy. And then you send it on in, submit it to the Secretary of State's office. It's reserved. It's not given to you till they've researched it. There's actually a link on the Secretary of State's site that lets you search business names in Georgia. So you do that first to see if anyone else has your name. They won't authorize it until they've done the research, but at least you can look in there and say, okay, I can't believe it, but someone else took Coca-Cola as my business name. Now it's going to be Coca-Cola Studios, but no, never heard of them. Must be some other startup, some other part of the state, but c'est la vie. But yeah, if you've got a name for a studio, holy cow, my games are good games incorporated. Check it out, see if anyone else has taken it. If not, then you can reserve it through here. When the Secretary of State's office sends a note back to you, then you know that you can go ahead and use that name. All right, sorry to leave this beautiful website right here. And now my PowerPoint's not coming up. It's right there in front of you guys. I got it. Or maybe I don't got it. Ah, completely. This is your personal computer I just broke?
That's fine.
Ah, there you go. Max. Max. Someone should come in here and rant about how PCs are better than anything else. All right. Next are the Articles of Incorporation, in Georgia known as Articles of Organization. And this one I actually can show you because I had the good sense to actually put them in. And can anyone read them from where you're sitting? All right.
Articles of Organization.
Yeah. So, this is a little more detailed than what's on the Secretary of State's side. The Secretary of State actually gives you possible articles you can use, and this is essentially what they are. Article 1, the name of this company will be X. Article 2, this is where we live. And that is all you really have to do. In a larger company, you want a lot more. There's a lot more information you want in here. But to start a studio, to start a company in Georgia, this is basically all you have to do. One of the advantages of having a relationship with a good bank, a local bank, is that they will often have articles of incorporation like on hand that they can hand off to new businesses and they'll walk you through a lot of these details. They want more business clients. So one of the unknown facts is that a banker can actually be really helpful here. They're not trying to loan you money, they're not even making much money off of this, but they want to see more businesses because eventually you could turn into somebody big for their bank. So they will come to you. Or they will help you out with this stage. That is what you get back from the state after you've given them this. All right, you have your certificate. After I sent them my articles of organization, I got a certificate of organization. So at this point, you are an official business. Now that costs money. I think it's $100 when you do it the first time and $50 to renew it every year. But it is well worth it for the protection. I've been telling a lot of friends of mine in this day of age, it makes a lot of sense for most people to have a corporation. If you're doing anything in what's called the gig economy now, you're doing a lot of different jobs it is a good idea to be your own company to which all of these assets are coming and to give you these protections that you otherwise don't have. Sue my company, don't sue me when my Uber hits you. Just don't be drunk at the time when they're still coming after you. So really, your articles of organization in a big company, this is not what Coca-Cola's articles of organization look like. I can guarantee you. I've never seen them, but I can guarantee you theirs are a lot more detailed than this. But that's really all you need. All right. Bylaws are separate from the articles of incorporation. You'll want bylaws too. Now the first two I pulled out because those are the two things you absolutely must have. These others, some companies can get a little bit fudgy with. If you ever think you might want to sell your company or have investors, do all of these. So for most people, you should do all of these. If you're absolutely positive that you're never going to sell your company and you're the sole owner of it, you can be a little fudgy with some of this stuff. But bylaws will tell a company how they operate. But from a legal perspective, these are really what matters most. And it's very, very simple. When and where do we hold our stockholder meetings? Who votes? Generally, whoever has stock, and it's one vote per stock unless you have some weird complexities in with it, which no beginning game studio really needs. How do they vote? Is it majority rules? Is it you have to have a 2/3 majority, etc.? For what do they vote? Generally, the members of the board. And optional, especially for your first meeting, who gets shares? 4 members in your company, all doing equal work. They all get 25 out of the 100 shares that exist in your company. You create 1 million shares for your company. You can just pull these basically out of midair and say, I'm creating 10 million shares of stock in my company and I own them all. You know, if my bank account's $100 for the corporation, those shares of stock aren't worth much, but it sure does sound cool. Generally, you want to do something intelligent and efficient, 100, 1,000, whatever, depending on what you're doing. Then you can create more stock as needed in the future if the stockholders agree on that. But these are generally the basics of what should be in a set of bylaws. Just this. Coca-Cola's bylaws are much bigger, I guarantee. A lot of other things can be handled within the bylaws. But this is the basics of what you need to have in place if you're going to try and start getting other folks interested in the company. All right, corporate directors. The Secretary of State's office will generally want someone in the equivalent role of chairman or CEO, someone in the equivalent role of secretary, someone in the equivalent role of treasurer, just to be on the public listing for your company. All the information you're giving the Secretary of State's office is public information. So if you don't want people to know where you live, have a P.O. box, have a friend willing to let their house be used for this purpose, whatever. But you need a real address to which letters can be sent to you. It doesn't have to be a physical place, doesn't have to be a house or an office building. You can use a P.O. box or whatever, but you need an address. You'll need a few corporate directors. Those three are what the state wants. You can do more, and certainly there are a lot of companies that will have a lot more of those. But those three are basically what you want to worry about. I did not put a slide in for minutes because I was going to pull up a website for minutes. The minutes and the corporate records book kind of go together. You're going to be putting in your certificate of organization in your record books. You're going to have your bylaws. You're going to have the articles of organization. And you'll have the minutes from each board meeting to show that you've done it. And the board minutes can be as simple as, we met at this place, on this date, we elected these people as officers, and we adjourned. It really can be that simple to give you basically what the law, what investors want to see, that you are a functioning corporation doing your basic duties. You can vote on a lot more things. We've decided to give Jesse James 1,000 shares in our company today by a hand vote. We've decided that we're going to buy out somebody. We've decided that we're going to change some aspect of the bylaws. All that can happen. If that happens, they should be included in the minutes. But bare minimum doesn't necessarily have to be. And all that goes in the corporate records book. So when an investor comes along and says, are you a real company? You can say, yes, we are a real company. If you want to try and get a loan from bankers, yes, we are a real company. We act as a real company. We fulfill our fiduciary duty. All of this gets more complicated with the issue of stock. So if all of you are in agreement and all of you are equal stockholders, this can all be pretty nice. What happens when stockholders start disagreeing? This is when you need these minutes in place. This is when you need this history in place. And boy, can this become a confusion when somebody else comes in with money. Hey, I love your company. I think you're going to be great. I want to give you $100,000 to $250,000 to make your next game. I want 50% of your stock. Now everybody's going back and forth. How do we handle this moment? And this is when all of these questions, how do we vote? How do we make this decision, all really come into play? I said before, when there's a little bit of money, there's not much tension. When there's a lot of money, there can be a lot of tension suddenly popping up, and a lot of different questions on how all these things are handled. And this is when it all starts to cascade. And at this point, you're very happy you have all these things in place. Because if any of this is a question, now that whole $250,000 the person's looking to invest in the company can be spent on lawyers between everyone fighting over that $250,000. All right. Let's blast on very quickly, because I promised you I would talk about scoring. All right, well, these are, three different types of investors. So we're talking about investors. The scoring system I talk about for companies is a little thing called money. You might never have heard of this before. But how much you spend and how much you make are the scoring systems for the majority of companies out there in the world. And this is all about how does that money come in and what do you do with it. So generally, these types of investors will want to see a real company in place before they're going to put any money in. Venture capital is generally the big money. Now we're talking like 10 million, whatever. I forget what the general range is for it, but this is a significant amount of money. Angel funding, and venture capital means they're just making ventures here and there. I've got $1 billion, so I'm going to make a venture here and there. Angel investors are those people who come in and generally provide both money and expertise, but less money than what the venture capitalists would provide. So these people might be giving you $100,000. That $250,000 investor I was talking about. They could be as low as $10,000. Generally will come with some level of expertise as well. And the final level is the most common level for small game studios: friends, family, and fools. So people who will invest in you because they like you, because they trust you, or because they don't know they shouldn't. All right, quickly on to the next level, which is self-funding. There are a lot of ways to fund your own company, doing part-time work, doing anything else, hopefully making games as well, but there are people who've done it in other types of software, in other types of art, in marketing, wide variety. Offer equity. Equity is another term for stock. In other words, I'm going to give somebody stock in my company if they do work for my company. I can defer payments. Hey, my game's going to make $1 billion as soon as it's launched. We are the next Pokemon Go. Or maybe now you can pay people in lures. I don't know. And then there are various formulas creating equitable pay for work formulas. How much is a programmer's time worth? How much is an artist's time worth? Etc. But you can come up with these. And there are people I know who make money winning contests for games, making games to win contests so they can make more games to win contests. So once you have made some games, start entering these contests. Nice little way to make money. Running low on time, so I'm going to zip through crowdfunding. I think most of you know the different crowdfunding platforms right now. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about contract work. You might go ahead and make other people's games. I did want to get to this because we talked about rights before. So if you're a programmer, who owns the code that you put together? Is it you? Is it the new game studio? And if I'm working for a contractor, can I use that code with them? More importantly, can I use the code I create for that contractor in my games? And you better be very clear on how you're handling this, because there have been a lot of studios who've been sunk on just this issue. A programmer thought they had rights to use code they'd written elsewhere and didn't. And their entire studio got shut down, they got sued for damages, etc. There have even been artists, there have been some pretty notable cases, artists who took other people's artwork, put it into a game, took artwork off of a fan site for a game and put it in. So you do have to be very careful about who has the rights to what you are doing. I'm sorry I'm zipping through these aspects of money because I did want to talk a little bit more about budgeting. As a small studio, you only have a little bit of money, so you have to be usually pretty careful on how you use this. And this is a rule that applies in not just games, but most areas of business, anywhere where there's a budget in place. You've got three things. You can be fast, you can be good, you can be cheap, but you can't be all of those. So you can be two of those three. If you're going to be fast and you're going to be cheap, you're not going to be good. If you're going to be cheap and you want to be good, you're not going to be fast. If you're going to be fast and you're going to be good, it is not going to be cheap. So you go ahead and budget. And this is one that was worked up. Ambler did a really good job on this, specifically for software. I think it works very well for the games industry. You've got 3 points, and these have to kind of space out to create a triangle. You've got scope. If you're going to have a lot of features, a lot of functionality, you have a high cost or budget or a long time, again, it's that same thing. You can't have, if you're going to be cheap, you're not going to have a lot of functionality or you're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to have to cancel out one or the other. And that leads, people, time. All right, marketing. I'll blast through these so I can get to what I want to show you here, which is a sample budget. This is one of the things that all corporations need to do, and as game studios, new game studios, I see fail this so many times. And this is essentially just a game. One of the secrets, a lot of games are just pretty databases, and the better we hide the fact, the better the game is. but databases are a key part of most games. And we need to do these as part of our own companies. So this is a very basic formula on this. What's the role? How much does that role cost? And how long will I be spending that money on that role? I did a pretty simple one here. So this is for a decently funded studio that's up and running. This project is got what's called a run rate. How much does it cost to have this person work for 1 month? Different positions will often have a different run rate. Maybe your programmer is earning a high run rate, and maybe you're giving your audio guy some vanilla wafers once in a while or something like that. Each of them will have their own distinct run rate. I'm just doing one run rate for everybody in this, and I'm putting how many months they're going to be on the project. So you can see that project manager is going to be on it the entire time. The lead programmer is on it the entire time. The lead artist is on it the entire time. I've got 2 other artists who will be working on it, but they're going to work on it for 4 months. But there's 8 in that column. That's because you got to multiply the 2 times the 4 to get the total people months involved in this. So I've got a total people months of 26, and then I'm going to add some audio on into that. I'm going to pay someone else to test and make sure it's working on all platforms effectively. So the people are going to cost me $228,800. Audio's costing me another $10,000. QA, I should have just paid them in vanilla wafers. Audio's costing me $10,000. QA's cost me $5,000 for a total budget of $243,000. You don't do this when you're done with the game. You do this at the very start. Where can I save that? I don't have all that money. Well, all right. I either need to cut everyone's run rate, and run rate doesn't just include how much you're paying people. I should have explained this early on. The simplest way to do this is just with their salary or how much you're paying them. However, if you're a company, you're giving them benefits, you're paying some of their taxes. That needs to be included. If you have an office, how much of the rent goes to that person's office space? Are you buying them a computer? Are they getting a Unity license at their desk, et cetera? Everything that goes into that person should be put into their monthly run rate. So if I don't have that $243,000, can I cut their run rate? Can I cut the number of people? Can I cut the number of months? If I suddenly get more money, hey, where can I put it in to do more good for the project? Probably audio. But if some of your people are working for free because they're stockholders and they're going to get more money on the back end, that's great. Maybe your project manager and lead engineer, you're not paying them anything because they're making money outside of this. That's saving you 12 people month at this. You're already just cut this project down significantly, except those people are working for free. So I wish more small studios would do this early on. I'm amazed that they don't. It's one of the things, I put this last and spend more time on it, save some time to look at it and figure out how it interacts with your company. Even if you're not spending a lot in salaries, what are the other expenses you do have to take into consideration? Are you buying sound libraries? Are you having to get equipment for people? You got to figure all these out. And I did not realize I spent that much time on that one. So I'm sorry that I will blast through how to make other revenue. And I will end with the real scoring when you finally, and you can't read that at all. When you finally start making money, this is a nice royalty sheet that shows $900,000, almost $1 million in royalties. This is the scoring for a game company at the end of the project. Well, okay, Metacritic and fan reviews are the real scoring. This is a nice side part to it, the money actually coming in. So with that, I'll take 30 seconds worth of questions. All right, if there are any questions, I'll go ahead and repeat them. Otherwise, thank you all for, Otherwise, thank you all for coming, and thanks for inviting me to the first CIMFest.